One of the most important things about being self-aware is knowing, do you have the stomach to be an entrepreneur? Putting entrepreneur in your Instagram account, easy. Living the life of an entrepreneur where nobody else is on the line except you, hard, lonely, scary, difficult. Probably in 2006-07, the combination of YouTube and Twitter really stuck with me. A little bit earlier with MySpace, probably in 2005. That was the first time. I saw Friendster in 2003-04, but I didn't understand it for business yet. But I did start a Wine Library MySpace page, so it was already starting to come in my mind. But I would say 2006 to 2007, that February 2006 to February 2007, and that year, I was very fortunate. I was a failure my whole life. You know, when you're a bad student, you're used to failure. You know, I was a bad student. I loved sports. I played a lot of sports, but I wasn't great at sports. So I was dealing with adversity and failure. You know, when you're an immigrant, when you don't come from much, when you're little, you know, I was a little guy, when you're bad at school, there was nothing that was, and then I was a businessman, so when I would knock on doors and ask to wash somebody's car, you know, 90 out of 95 people said no. When I stood there at a lemonade stand, 100 cars would drive by for every one that would stop. So I was used to failure. Failure was my foundation, which is why I succeeded.
On your journey to success, you need to make sure that you are constantly figuring out a way to better yourself than you were the day before. It's all about moving forward. You always want to be making progress in some way, shape, or form, whether that's learning more knowledge about the subject matter at hand, or whether that's doing more actions to improve upon your ability to do certain things which will help you grow and help you learn about whatever it is that you want to become successful in. Because those are two of the biggest things, is learning by gaining information, and that could be by watching videos or by listening to podcasts or reading books or going out and networking and figuring out who's who in that world that you want to get better at. Or just by going out and doing trial and error work, figuring out what you want to do and just try to do it immediately as soon as you possibly can. You want to make sure that you're constantly trying to become successful and you're not trying to do things that will maybe help you be successful. You want to try to do that as much as possible and try to become the most successful individual that you can every single time by constantly pushing yourself further down the line. You want to make sure that you're constantly pushing yourself and the others around you to make sure that you're doing better than you were the day before. It's all about improvement, and the more improvement you have, the higher chance of you becoming successful is.
I mean, there's a lot of research, and again, being an F student in science, like I really don't, it's not that I don't trust anything, it's that I know that I haven't put in the work to really know if I should quote things. You know, so I kind of like just stay in my little lane, but there's a lot of push towards being a workaholic, and hard work is a learned behavior. I see it in my team. There's people that come into I've seen it in the thousands of employees I've had, which is the closer they are to the sun, the harder they work. And I'm like, aha. And so I definitely feel like I learned hard work by watching my parents. And so it's why I talk so much about hustle, right? And I'll never lose again, because the system was I needed to be accountable to another human being. So it was about Mike and now Jordan, whoever else is my trainer. I'm doing it almost weirdly more to not let them down than to, and so that was this shift. And so I feel like there's a shift that can make people work harder. The big one that I push is you're gonna die. Like if you're like to me, life is broken down into complaining and not. So if you're not complaining, well then I have no advice for you. I'm pumped. Like you did it. Like I have friends who make $42,000 a year, work 9 to 4, kind of, with an hour and a half lunch and 45 minutes of YouTube and an hour of complete wasted time in a meeting. So they're kind of working like 6, hours a week, right? But they're pumped. And they text me, these are high school friends, and they'll text me like how happy they are to be the coach of their kids' baseball team. And like that's amazing. Like that seems very obvious to me. Like that's right. Like, what's super weird? I'm actually weirdly envious. It sounds cool, like in theory, right? Grass is always greener, right? Like far less pressure, like all that time with my kids, oof, that would be cool. Like there's just like all these things that I can justify. So to me, but I have friends who have $100 million in the bank because of Facebook's IPO, who complain, who are still hungry, who want to do even more, who will complain to me because they know I work a lot about no work-life balance and they don't get to spend enough time with their family. And I'm like, you have $100 million. Like, you could stay home. Like, you're in control. Like, you don't complain about it. You've made that choice. Like, you want to spend more time with your family? Spend more time with your family. This is back to what we said about keyboard warriors. I'm trying to be very careful about what I'm saying versus what I'm doing, because that's how you get exposed. And I don't mean like people calling you out and being like, you suck. I mean to yourself. I don't want to be exposed by myself. It's looking yourself in the mirror and saying like, am I doing this right? So to me, about how big of an entrepreneur they're gonna be and how much they're gonna achieve, and they don't work on weekends. You know, I worked every Saturday of my 20s. Like, and I talk to 20-year-old entrepreneurs every single day. Lately, I've been saying to them, this Saturday, you're gonna have more time off than I've had in my entire 20s on a Saturday. So like, before you tell me how you're gonna be bigger than me, start thinking about what you're actually doing.
Right.
Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let us know what you thought down in the comment section below.